Hey everybody, how y'all doing out there? Up here at the dentist with my wife. She's inside getting her gums fitted for some dentures. Be my turn next. This is a good story for you. I told this one before, but didn't get very many views. Not very many at all. So we'll tell it this time face to face before I just did it in my room looking at a tree. Okay, here we go. And when I was a kid, I got my first scar in my first fight. The scar right there. When I was 3 years old. Because I was real fat. I was bigger around than I was tall for a lot of years. And I had real frizzy, ugly hair. Uglier than this. And I had a real bad stutter. And when stutters get stuck on they get stuck on one particular letter usually. And what causes it is the brain gets ahead of the mouth, and the mouth tries to catch up. For me, it was R, and my name is Roger, and there's a whole crap load of words out there with R in it. So when I tried talking, I'd be like like that, you know. So everybody and their freaking cousin enjoyed picking on me. And by the time I was 12 years old, I'd done been in, oh crap, man, I can't even, 40, 50 fights or some crap by the time I was 12 years old. So, when I was 12, I stayed in the house. Didn't go out hardly at all from the 12 to 13 and a half. I stayed inside the house 90% of the time. And pro wrestling, I watched that and learned how to do their moves. My brother-in-law, he wasn't my brother-in-law then, he was my sister's boyfriend, but he was a Golden Gloves boxer. Very good. He was a ranked boxer. Had a big future if he hadn't got messed up. But anyway, so from him, I learned how to box. And then I watched all I could learn about jiu-jitsu and their wrestling moves. I learned a lot of those. I learned bare naked choke when I was 12 and a half, and it put on my brother-in-law quite a few times. That's how I learned it. And because of all the troubles I had, I stayed inside for 12 to 13 and a half, and I read everything in the house. I was a big reader. I still read quite a bit. Back then, though, I read a lot. I mean, I read a book a week and magazines and newspapers and everything. So it got to the point I had nothing else to read. So I started reading the encyclopedia set. And I read the entire encyclopedia set. You know, not every paragraph. I jump a little bit. You know, miss a paragraph or two just to stay up. And, so I read the entire encyclopedia up to zebra when I was 12 to 13 and a half. But when I started going back out playing again, all them bullies in my neighborhood that enjoyed picking on me, I started getting my payback on them. The neighborhood that I grew up in was a biker, drug dealer neighborhood, pretty rough. And so all them biker types, you know, beat on Roger Isbell's fat, ugly butt. Well, it got to the point, I learned enough. I was getting back on them big old boys older than me. And by the time I was 16, nobody would mess with me. Because I wasn't afraid of fighting 2, 3 guys. It got to that point. And, oh crap. I hate even thinking about all this. So, in 1987, my wife, her lungs seized up 89%. Men can't make a fist that tight. The doctors said that she was one of 5 in the country that was as bad as she got. and that 2 of them had already passed away. So they come to me, and they said, Mr. Isbell, we want to experiment on her. I said, please explain that. What do you want to do? What do you want to experiment on, and how? What do you want to do? We want to give her a barbiturate cocktail. I said, so you mean you want to give her a mixed up drink with clouded and heroin and morphine and everything derived from heroin? They said yes, and a few other things thrown in there too. So I said, won't that kill her? And the doctor, cold as hell, you just said, she's going to die anyway. So I thought, we'll see about that. So I sat there thinking for a little bit, and went back to when I was a kid, reading those encyclopedias. And a little bit, 10 or 15 minutes later, it come back up into my head. I said, doctor, you ever heard of this stuff called curare? He's like, no, I've never heard of that. So I said, well, I understand it. It's a shellfish toxin that the South American Indians use. And whatever they hit it with their arrows, it's instant paralyzation. Because I asked him, what is the purpose of the barbiturate cocktail? He says, we want to put her into a coma, a drug-induced coma, and hopefully her muscles will relax, and then we can treat her and save her. Okay, I said, so I asked him, you ever heard of that curare? I said, whatever the Indians shoot it paralyzes them instantly. I said, I've seen a little video where they shot a monkey in a tree, and it wasn't even a second after the arrow hit it, that monkey was falling out of that tree, paralyzed. So bigger than crap, life flight it was called. I don't know if they still do that or not, but life flight, they fly all over and bring patients or bring medicines to patients. They flew down to South America and got curare and brought it back up to the hospital in up here on Highway 21 and 270 here in St. Louis. And it was something totally new. Nobody had ever done it before. And when they shot her up, they gave her a little bit too much. They didn't know, So, it did do it. It put her into a drug-induced coma, and all her muscles just totally let go. They put her into a coma for a month and a half. They were planning on 2 or 3 weeks, they said, and bring her back out of it, but they couldn't get her out of it. So, this is tough. I went down to the chapel, and I was down there 5 hours on my knees praying. I went back up to her room at about 6 in the morning, and then I sit there with her and talking to her, and of course she's totally out. She'll hear or see her, nothing like that. And about 10:30, her right toe started quivering like that. Her right big toe. And then a little bit later, her left big toe did the same thing. And I sit there for a bit, and her left toe started moving, so I went out there in the hall and I called for a doctor. And I went back over to her, and her eyes were looking at me. Before they were vacant, but her eyes were looking at me. So, by 3 o'clock, she was sitting up. But, because of the meds, it covered up all her muscle receptors, and she lost all muscle memory. She had to learn how to walk and talk and eat. She had to learn all that all over again. So that's the story about what happened. That's how the first medical-induced drug coma came into being. And, she's the first. So that's that story, folks. Bye.